Welcome. I'm Arleigh with Bike Shop Girl, and today we're going to be talking about winter bike maintenance, a huge topic right now because more people are riding through the winter, which is amazing to see. And I receive a lot of questions. And while I used to own a shop in Denver, Colorado, I purposefully moved to North Carolina so I don't have to worry about so many of these questions. And so I thought, let's ask my good friend Luke, who owns Perennial Cycle in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and rides through negative 11, 15, 20 degrees, and then also keeps his customers running throughout the winter. So Luke, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for asking me, Arleigh. I'm thrilled to be here. And yeah, I own Perennial Cycle in Minneapolis. And I've been the owner of Perennial for 27 years. So been doing this a while. I've been pretty steady throughout the whole game to do utility cycling in Minneapolis. So I'm a city urban shop. Yeah, over the years, I've kind of built up a little bit of experience dealing with keeping bikes on the road. And definitely in the last 10 years, it's not been a short time, but over the last 10 years, there have been more and more and more all kinds of people riding through the winter. And it's an extreme thing here in Minneapolis. I rode in
Winter's
this
like
morning.
5 months long.
It's a long, long, dark, cold winter. It was minus 11 when I left the house this morning. And that's extreme, even for me. Not to say that it can get a little bit colder. I guess minus 20 is probably about minus 20, minus 24. That's probably about as cold as just.
And Luke's been on before, and I'll link below. So Luke and I have had a conversation about winter biking gear, and that was very product heavy. We talked about studded tires, we talked about mittens, we've talked about all sorts of things. And today I really want to just talk about keeping your bike safe and reliable through the winter. And Luke, I think you are the only shop that I know of that offers this. You have a winter service program. And that was really cool to hear about.
It's an awesome program, actually. The winter maintenance membership program. And what happens is, it's in November that we start checking people in, and people pay a flat rate. Right now, it's $99. $99 allows someone to drop their bike off no more than once a week. So once a week is the max, but you can drop it off and give us, it's about an hour. We need to thaw the bike out first. And then we're going to get it in the stand. And, the things that are going to, I heard one of the mechanics say that to a customer, I desalinated your bike today. So we have a lot of salt on the roads here. And the salt is something that gets into the chain, it gets into the cables, it just gets onto the derailleurs. And if it's just left to be, it will begin corrosion immediately. And so those are the things that we're concerned about. We're always kind of looking for where is the salt ending up on the bike? What's it going to take to get rid of it? And usually it's cables and drivetrain that we're going to be focusing on.
If you had key recommendations to what people should be doing for basic winter bike maintenance to make sure their bike is safe and reliable through the coldest of months, what would those be?
To keep things running as smoothly as possible, cables are going to have to be kept lubed up. And it's just a lightweight, like T9 is a nice lightweight lube. It's the same kind of lube that we use on the chain, but not that. Some of the chain lubes can be pretty heavy. We'd be using one of the lighter weight lubes, like T9, Triflow, the lighter weight Dumont. In fact, those all work really well. They do have to be oil-based. While we love the wax base for how clean they are, they're not going to help you out in a Minnesota winter. But we need something that's going to stick a little heavier to keep everything from corroding, because corrosion is where things kind of go south. If your cables start to corrode, it means all of a sudden, whether it be your brake or your shifter, it's just not going to work quite as smoothly as you need it to. Lubing the chain, it is important, just like in the summertime, when you're done lubing the chain, you want to remove the excess lube. This is something that, kind of left to your own devices, you're going to be lubing the chain too much in the winter. And maybe you just need to do that. And then in the spring, you're going to replace your drivetrain. That kind of used to be a really normal kind of modus operandi, is you just kind of ruin your bike in the winter, and then come spring, you replace everything.
A lot of us used to switch to single speed or fixies, because
correct.
There was no derailleur. If your brakes froze up, you at least had your legs. But you don't want to be riding a fixed gear in the snow. It's very special, and I think my knees hurt because of it.
Yes, I was just never cool enough for those solutions.
Smarter. You were too smart. That was really it. And a fixed gear is where, for folks that don't know, fixed gear is when you can't stop pedaling. So like track bikes use them. I think this idea of donor bikes, one, as cycling becomes mainstream, most people just have one bike for their commuting. So I think keeping it happy throughout the winter saves you money, makes it reliable and safe. And so lubing your cables and chain just makes things continue to work, keeps things from being corroded. I know personally, a lot of folks, probably the most common question I receive is, well, what happens if you don't have a hose? Let's pretend you didn't have the shop to like de-ice and things like that. I personally never hosed off my bikes in the winter, but we don't have the salt that you guys do. So how would you recommend to folks that maybe they can't bring their bike in?
No, that's a great question. And I will say, we did add a hose outside of the shop, and we run hot water through it. That's part of the winter maintenance membership. And it's a really valid point. Like, what do we do if you don't have that option? That being said, even, 4 years ago, we didn't have the setup that we do now. We would take a bucket, put some warm water in it, and a little bit of dish soap. So the dish soap's the cut through the grease that's kind of, you're picking up the salt, but you're also picking up just, the exhaust from cars. So there's always a little bit of oil mixed in on the bike. So just like a little bit of dish soap in a bucket of warm water. And we would use we still do. We use a brush that's got kind of a big head on it, so it will hold quite a bit of water. And that's just kind of, I don't like to totally douse the bike. So we use the brush, rinse it, dry it out a little bit, and rub it down real good. That way we're cutting through both the salt and the grease that's on the bike. And mind you, when we're done doing that, we're still, wiping the bike down in the shop, and we may still be using like some kind of window cleaner to spritz off some of the areas, like the rims. They tend to grab quite a bit of that grit, and so it's a little bit harder to clean those off. Wheels is another kind of, pinch point in the process here of winter use. Lubing the spokes where they come to the end of the nipple, and where the nipple comes out of the rim, a drop of lube there will help keep you'll be able to keep truing your wheels for years and years. You've had plenty. And
what you're just seeing is where the metal, where the nipple comes through. So the nipple is what we tighten to tighten a spoke or loosen. and that comes through your rim, and then your spoke goes through. So you have really 2 points of metal and metal. You have it in the rim,
Correct.
and then the spoke to the nipple. And even if you just ride during the nice weather, that still can become a problem. And then, especially during the winter, corrosion happens in those places. So when you're lubing your cables and chain, you should also be lubing if you can take the time. But the warning that I have is make sure it doesn't get onto your braking surface if you use caliper rim brakes. Are you seeing most people switching at this point to disc brakes if they ride through the winter?
Yes. Yeah. So at this point, disc brakes are just kind of everywhere. So, and it is, the fact is, these are great examples of why you would want a disc brake. We do wear through rims much quicker. So brake pads and rims both wear out pretty quickly. And this is just commuting stuff, not necessarily cold weather, winter stuff. And so disc brakes would definitely take away that concern.
Yeah, and I mean, I still remember I used to live in Boston, commuting home and just not having brakes because my cross bike had rim brakes. And there was so much snow built up that I just would go to brake and there was nothing. And that's when I switched to riding a fixed gear in Boston because it was like, disc brakes weren't a thing at that point. So it was like, blow out your knees or not have brakes. One of the topics I like to talk about would be air pressure. What are your thoughts about air pressure?
Yeah. So couple things. For one, here in Minnesota, winter commuting, winter riding is going to mean you're using studded tires. This isn't the case everywhere. The air pressure conversation is going to be pretty similar whether you're using studded tires or not studded tires through the winter. But so for me, you were talking about losing range because it's winter and you're going through snow. Studded tires is another big consideration. They are significantly slower, and there's extra drag that you're dealing with, and so you're gonna if it's an electric bike, you're gonna lose some range. On my non-electric bike, I run my tires pretty high. I run up around 55 to 65 because I'm trying to keep my efficiency up on that bike as best I can. On the electric bike, where my efficiency isn't quite as big a deal, ideally I'm down around 40 pounds, 35, 40 pounds of air pressure on the same tires. I'm not saying a different tire, not a fat bike tire. Fat bike tires, 6 pounds is kind of a big deal. These are these
the Schwalbe winter marathons? So like those have a 35 to 55, 65 range?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you're kind of living at the bottom of the range on the e-bike and the top of the range.
On the e-bike, I'm living at the bottom of the range because they will grip better in the lower pressures. But on my other bike, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of grip to keep a little bit extra efficiency going on it.
Yeah, for winter tire pressure, I feel like your 3 variables are like efficiency, traction, and comfort, and so depending on your bike and depending where you are, like you all have much more snow than most places, so you have a different traction and comfort need than somebody that maybe is just coming across ice, and so they're running on asphalt the whole time and they just need traction in the turns. And so there are these 3 variables and you kind of just have to figure out what works. But the end of the day, you don't want to get a flat in the winter.
Yeah.
So you don't want to run so low that you're getting pinch flats or picking up extra glass from the road. I realize this is winter bike maintenance, but I think it's worth mentioning that as people are really thinking about commuting and having these reliable bikes, I feel like as a bike shop, it's also just asking those questions like, are you going to be riding through the winter? Because if you are, here are some things like, we all wear by fenders and disc brakes. But like one of the things that and I don't have it with me, but I've been adding longer flaps on all of the e-bikes that I would sell just so that the stuff wouldn't be kicked up into the motor. We were talking about winter bike maintenance. So is there anything specific that people could add to their bike to aid in their winter bike maintenance goals?
Yeah, no, I will say, so at Perennial, we sell a lot of cargo bikes. So I'm selling to a lot of families that are using the bike to drop the kids off at school, daycare, go grocery shopping. And the last 2 summers, I bet 25% of the buyers were asking about winter biking and bought studded tires for their cargo bikes right then and there. 4th of July, they're buying studded tires because their goal was.
If you don't, they're going to be gone.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Even before there were supply chain issues, studded tires were just not the most commonly found item. But anyway, so yes, you kind of have to prepare for winter riding a little bit differently than you would with your just a bike that you're getting for the summer. And lots of these bikes are electric bikes, and so that's adding another little twist to things.
What are your tips for e-bike specific maintenance and let's call it hygiene, because I don't know if it's actually maintenance that you need?
Yeah, right. You're correct. As far as just keeping it, the things that we're keeping clean are the same on the electric bike as any other bike. But there are some best practices that we have to be aware of. For one, the battery really it's not great for a battery to be in super cold temperatures. And so as soon as I got home last night, I took the battery off the bike and brought it inside. The battery should not be stored overnight in super cold temperatures. And that should never happen. They're just not up for it. And you will lose some range, permanently lose some range from a battery if it hasn't been cared for in warmer temperatures.
Yeah, you're degrading it for sure.
You're degrading
either the cold and the hot, the extremes.
Yes. You will lose some range on the battery from the cold temperature, not degrading the battery, just how, a battery will lose some range as it gets super cold. That is not as big a deal as one might think. Like I say, those batteries, when they're running, they are producing a little bit of heat within them. And so, if I take my phone out of my pocket in super cold temperatures, it goes down fast, it doesn't last. That's not true. The batteries on the e-bikes definitely will keep a solid range going. The danger is leaving them outside in super cold temperatures. The motor also is needing to be protected from super cold. So motor is a little harder for me to keep protected because I do park the bike in the backyard. But when I'm at work, I always bring the bike inside.
Lucky. Yeah, my experience with the batteries, as long as you're bringing it in, either when you arrive to your destination, if I'm running into the grocery store or coffee shop, I don't bring it in. But if I'm going to be going in for a couple of hours, I bring in my battery. And then I found, at least in Colorado, I was only getting 5 or 10% less range in my charge if I was bringing the battery in, and I think, and this was extremes, when I was riding under 10 degrees, I would see, and we're talking 3 to 5 mile difference. And I think it was that initial warm up period and the other thing that's hard to decide what it was, I was also probably riding in the snow. So was I getting less range because the terrain wasn't smooth? To your point of the motor, if you have the option when you're locking up, when you're out, try to park in the sun. That was something, you're bottom will be less frozen because the seat will be warmer and your motor hopefully would have stayed warm. And then the last tip that I always tell people, if you have a removable display, always bring that in just like you would your battery. Those are the ones that I see because the battery in that is so small that if you take your battery off the bike, the head unit will die because it's so cold. So we talked about bringing your battery in. Before hitting record, we both expressed that we really like the neoprene battery sleeves. I found them just so I could be a hand model.
These are neoprene covers are awesome for retaining the heat. But as mentioned, the batteries create a little bit of heat, so that means they're also keeping that heat inside. That is something that will definitely keep the battery in a little bit safer mode and minimize the loss of range.
The other item that they make, I don't have it out of the bag, but this is, if you pull your bike battery off, this is an electric cap cover. And I prefer this one over the Bosch cap for the winter or rainy months because it actually covers the whole thing instead of water pooling in underneath. I personally haven't seen any problems or concerns with water and electric cap, but I have had the electric cap freeze on, and try to get it off with my mittens. So I really like this neoprene electric cap cover just to keep that contact nice and clean from where you pull the battery off.
Yeah, I've definitely used that, and I started using it because there was a little bit of fresh snow, and I brushed the connections off, and you're right, it didn't cause any problem with the connection, but there was snow that was preventing me from locking the battery in, and that's a real bummer because then it will eventually you'll hit a bump big enough that the battery will pop off.
Luke's riding down the street holding his battery in.
I had a bungee cord.
Even better.
But yeah, it is those. No matter what happens overnight, they're also really a smart thing to put on the bike. If the bike is ever on a bike rack and you're driving somewhere, if you're driving down the freeway at 65 miles an hour, that's like being in a power spray wash. Anything you can.
And you should always take your battery off. Just to quickly, if you're transporting your bike on the back of a vehicle or in a truck bed, take the battery off.
Yes, absolutely.
Those were our top tips. I would love to hear from you what you do for winter bike maintenance, and make sure to add where you live because it is so specific to the region and the weather. Luke, how do folks find you?
I guess perennialcycle.com is one of the easiest places. So if you have a question, there's a contact page. You can reach out there. There's a phone number there. But yeah, perennialcycle.com will get you to us.
I will add below links to Luke's information, but also other videos we've done together. He is my Dynamo bike light expert. We've talked about winter bike accessories and gear. And it's worth mentioning, they have a great online store. So if you are in the need of fenders, studded tires, dynamo lights, Tern gear, Luke's team can hook you up. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for watching. And Luke, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Arleigh. I really appreciate it.